Carol was a young woman with big hopes and ambitions when she left her birthplace to pursue them and publish her cherished fantasy books. However, her leaving meant she would be separated from her great love, Tim. Now, 35 years later, they have a new opportunity. Carol parked her expensive automobile in front of the Posada Inspiracao in the late afternoon. The inn was positioned on top of the hill, creating an amazing, cozy, and inviting atmosphere. It gave off a sense of tranquility and peace. Carol returned to her hometown after 35 years. She felt nostalgic to be returning after such a long absence. She remembered the familiar streets, the shop facades from her youth, and a sense of belonging. It was a festive moment because the town was commemorating its anniversary. According to tradition, the date would be commemorated with a magnificent ceremony, and this year will be much more special. The town hall decided to recognize the town's youth who had excelled in various disciplines. Carol, the successful writer, was one of those picked to receive this distinction. Carol had gained international recognition as her fantasy novels became a fad among young people, remaining on bestseller lists for years and even being made into films. The town was bright and alive, adorned with colorful colors and festive elements in honor of the unique anniversary and the ceremony to commemorate distinguished individuals. The central area where the memorial ceremony would take place had been converted into a breathtaking setting. A big stage had been built up with flowing curtains and stunning lights. Carol entered the inn's reception area, anxious to settle in and relax before the important ceremony the next morning. However, the receptionist appeared perplexed while searching for her reservation. After a brief delay, she informed Carol that there had been a misunderstanding and there was no room reservation in her name. "What do you mean there is no reservation for me?" Carol exclaimed, fighting to remain calm. "I'm here for a special occasion, the town's tribute ceremony, and I need somewhere to stay." With a troubled expression, the receptionist informed that due to the town's festival, all of the inn's rooms were booked. She apologized for the inconvenience and offered to check into alternate accommodations in the region. Carol felt her irritation build. Carol asked to speak with the proprietor of the inn, her voice clearly irritated. "I need to get this matter fixed." The receptionist, taken aback by Carol's anger, immediately complied and called the inn's owner. Carol was astounded when the owner appeared. It was Tim, her former love. Carol and Tim grew up together in that little town. They had been sharing adventures since childhood, exploring the paths and hidden secrets of their surrounds. Carol and Tim's feelings intensified as they grew into young adults, and they began dating. Despite their disparate personalities, they discovered ways to understand and complement one another. Carol was a dreamy young woman, full of ideas and passions, whereas Tim was more practical, always prepared to confront life's reality. These differences never separated them, but rather enabled them to learn and grow together. They imagined a future together when they were younger. They discussed developing their life together and starting a family. Carol admired Tim's stability and practicality, which kept her grounded when her goals took her too high. Tim, in turn, admired Carol's inventiveness and drive, which encouraged him to pursue his own aspirations. The fates of the two young people appeared to be on track until Carol made a decision that changed the course of their lives forever. Carol faced a difficult decision while they were young and in love. Her desire to become a renowned writer grew stronger, and she felt compelled to leave town and pursue chances elsewhere. It was an unknown route, but she believed she had to pursue her passion and see what the world had to offer. Carol had a unique ability to bring words to life since she was a child. Her rich imagination allowed her to create entire universes and bring characters to life in her novels. Her descriptions of places, experiences, and dialogues were so vivid that they seemed to leap off the pages and take on a life of their own. Carol polished her inherent talent over time, devoting herself to improving her writing and experimenting with new literary forms. Carol made a decision in this environment that would forever affect both her and Tim's lives. Carol resolved to pursue her goal, leaving behind the village of her youth, and most importantly, an upset Tim. Carol and Tim faced insurmountable physical distance and temporal constraints. Despite their pledge to keep in touch via letters and phone conversations, time constraints made frequent communication tough. Initially, letters were exchanged on a daily basis, delivering news, thoughts, and shared experiences. Phone conversations were rare, but each one was packed with emotion and affection. However, as the years passed, the letters got less frequent. Carol's hectic life, the demands of a writing career and daily duties, all took up her time and energy. Carol and Tim progressively drifted apart due to geographical distance and lifestyle differences. Carol and Tim settled into silence over time. Letters stopped arriving and phone calls ended. Physical distance, a lack of time, and infrequent interaction eventually corroded the bridges that once connected them. The lack of news and words of affection left profound impressions, fueling the belief that time and distance had separated not just their lives, but also their spirits. But now, with the unexpected reunion, Carol and Tim may reflect on the decision that changed their lives. They have the opportunity to address the past. When Tim and Carol's eyes connect again at the inn's reception, they are overcome with amazement. The meeting after all these years seemed unavoidable, but Carol had no clue it would unfold in this manner. She was unaware that the inn of inspiration where she was set to stay belonged to Tim. Carol's heart was filled with a mix of joy, nervousness, and a tinge of dread as she realized the gravity of the situation. She found herself wondering what this unexpected meeting meant for them and how they would both deal with the emotions that would undoubtedly surface. After the initial shock, Tim regained his composure with a serious expression. His head was filled with a variety of mixed emotions. Carol's return after such a long absence reawakened latent memories and sparked a vortex of possibilities. Carol noticed Tim's coldness as he simply nodded at her. Carol felt disappointed since she had hoped for a warmer and more affectionate reunion with the man who had previously been her great love. Meanwhile, the receptionist noticed the tension in the air and approached Carol to explain the problem with her reservation. Tim listened intently to the receptionist's remarks and began to grasp the problem. His solemn demeanor relaxed slightly as he realized that the problem was not the inn's fault, but rather a misunderstanding. Tim responded rapidly to resolve the issue. He grabbed up the phone and began phoning the various inns in town looking for a place to accommodate Carol. However, his dreams were dashed when he realized that all of the inns were fully booked due to the town's festival attendees. Carol's annoyance became apparent at this point, and she expressed it by blaming the inn for the reservation mix-up. She believed that the inn had failed to fulfill its job in guaranteeing suitable lodging and blamed the establishment for the uncomfortable circumstance she found herself in. Tim, for his part, disagreed with Carol's strategy and blamed her for the outcome. He maintained that she was responsible for the reservation and should have ensured that everything was in order prior to her arrival. As the dispute progresses, the tension between the two increases. Although the reservation at the inn is at the center of the disagreement, the words exchanged indicate deeper and unresolved sentiments of guilt over their relationship's termination. Tim harbored feelings of anger and animosity for what he saw to be Carol's abandonment 35 years earlier, compounded by their lack of communication. That moment of separation had a profound impact on Tim's ability to trust and emotionally commit to new relationships. The subsequent relationships in Tim's life were superficial and ephemeral. He kept an emotional distance, scared of being too engaged and being abandoned again. Tim enclosed himself in his own protective shell, erecting barriers that isolated him from others. He kept his emotions hidden, being reserved and skeptical. The scars from the past remained open, and he did not want a chance being hurt again. Carol harbored animosity against Tim. After leaving her birthplace, she was able to establish herself in her new location, find a secure employment, and make significant progress toward accomplishing her dream of publishing her writings. She eagerly anticipated responses from publishers, hoping that her fascinating stories would be brought to life on the pages of the books. Carol persuaded Tim to join her in her new city, assuring him that her pay would cover their expenses while he hunted for work. Tim, however, denied Carol's invitation out of pride and dread of leaving his community. The dread of the unknown and the reluctance to leave his familiar life prevented him from accepting Carol's gracious offer. And while each of them followed their own path, they carried unresolved memories from their past. Carol observed the other guests observing the altercation in the inn's reception area as it was still going on. Knowing that nothing would be resolved given their level of anxiousness, she opted to end the dispute and depart the inn. While driving aimlessly around the streets of the little town center, she comes across the old diner where she used to hang out with Tim and other friends. Everyone hailed Carol as she entered the diner. Her international recognition had elevated her to the status of local celebrity. Everyone took satisfaction in telling her old memories from when they lived with her. Carol finally settles onto a table at the old diner after taking some photos and signing a few books. While she is trying to think of a solution to her accommodation problem, she is startled by a tap on her shoulder. Tim nods and asks for permission to sit in the chair in front of her. Carol nods in agreement. Will the discussion be restarted? They allow themselves a period of silence. They stare at each other like they used to. Tim can't ignore Carol's attractiveness or the fact that time has been generous. The once little girl has become a lovely and exquisite young lady. He smiles unintentionally, and this simple move invites Carol to speak. Sorry, Tim, but I lost control and created an unpleasant scenario for you and your staff. Carol, I reside in a chalet in the back of the inn. I have an extra room available, and you are welcome to stay there while in town. It would be a tremendous pleasure to welcome you. She wasn't sure if accepting the stay at Tim's house was a wise decision, but the prospect of being close to him was appealing. She even tries to hide her enthusiasm for the proposal, but her instant assent shows her true feelings. During the night at Tim's cozy hut, a sense of peace and closeness filled the air. Tim cooks a special dinner for the two of them, using his culinary skills and devotion. While getting dressed in the room Tim generously offered her, she feels at ease and acquainted in her new surroundings. As she arranges her belongings, she observes subtle, personal touches in the room that represent Tim's personality, such as a painting of a landscape he created and a bookcase with titles she remembers from their time together. These touches conjure nostalgic recollections and underline the sense that despite their long separation, they still shared a particular bond. Carol had been married twice, but she struggled to maintain her relationships because she had unrealistic expectations of herself and her partners. Her dreamy and romantic personality frequently resulted in unreachable ideals, which posed a source of stress and tension in her relationships. Carol was haunted by Tim's memory, wondering if she would ever discover a love as real and uncomplicated as the one they shared. Tim also had profound feelings for Carol, and no one appeared to equal the brightness, pleasure, and inventiveness he felt in her company. As much as he had constructed his own life and dedicated himself to the inn's success, the name Inspiration served as a continual reminder of Carol. Carol and Tim sit at the table enjoying a delicious lunch and discussing their lives and experiences since their separation. The words flow freely, evoking good memories from the past. The night stretches ahead of them, full of possibilities for renewing their connection and cultivating a more mature and strong love. As the moonlight floods the chalet, Carol and Tim embrace affectionately, knowing that the long-awaited fresh beginning has arrived. Carol and Tim decide that night to put their past accusations and resentments behind them. Carol and Tim, with open hearts and a willingness to reconcile, allow themselves to be intimate and rediscover each other. The night becomes a haven of affection and collaboration, allowing them to be vulnerable and real to one another. Subtle gestures, warm touches, and meaningful looks communicate a deep relationship that transcends time and adversity. Carol prepares for the special celebration at Town Hall to honor her achievements as a successful writer in the morning as the sun begins to shine. As she carefully selects her clothes and prepares, she feels a sense of pride and thankfulness for everything she has accomplished by following her aspirations. Carol, on the other hand, recognizes that her greatest accomplishment is not just her professional success, but also the opportunity to rebuild old bridges and live her genuine love beside Tim. Carol and Tim walk together to the ceremony, ready to tackle obstacles and celebrate life's joys. They understand that true love knows no age or boundaries, and they are committed to living each moment with gratitude and intensity. It is never too late to forgive, move on from past hurts, and live a full life of love. If you loved it, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to tell us how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently displayed on your screen. See you shortly.